Hey there, it's Melissa Brunetti, and welcome to the Mind Your Own Karma podcast.
Hey there, Karma Crew. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Mind Your Own Karma, the Adoption Chronicles. Today, I have Donna on the show today. She is a return guest and always has some great insight. Let me tell you a little bit more about Donna. Donna is a transracial adoptee born and raised in the UK by a white family with lots of foster children. Whilst the only Black child, all the children were from different backgrounds and were equally loved. While not emotionally close to her parents growing up, Donna has always felt unconditional love for them. Trauma still came her way, and Donna thinks she may have had less trauma if she hadn't kept quiet about traumatic events that happened to her during her childhood. Donna has been slowly peeling the layers of her truth for 50 years. Learning to be a speaker led to her first talk about her adoption, and in 2020, she set up her Searching for Truth podcast, doing interviews about various topics that touch her own experiences. Donna also published a short memoir called Lost and Found in the anthology New Woman by Ritu Sharma in 2021. Now in Dominica with her husband and son, Donna has experienced the most extraordinary challenges that she now believes are lined with incredible gifts for her healing and expansion. This is a Mother's Day episode, and I hope you hang in there. We have some great things that can help you on your journey to healing your relationships with your birth mother and your bio mother. Here is my interview with Donna. So we are welcoming Donna to the show today. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Melissa.
Donna has been a guest multiple times on the show, and I so appreciate your input as an adoptee and an advocate. And today we're going to do a little bit different than we've done in the past. We're going to talk about what you've learned and experienced with the bonds and relationships that you have with both mothers, bio and adoptive mother, and talk about some things that you've learned along the way with that. So thanks for coming on the show today.
You're welcome.
So let's start by recapping a little bit about your adoption story and tell us why your birth mother relinquished you. What do you know about that?
I was adopted in the early 1970s in the UK. My mother, birth mother, was white. I say was in past tense because she's no longer alive. My father is West Indian, found out many years later, Jamaican. Back in the early 70s in the UK and perhaps everywhere else, I don't know, but it was tough for a single white lady a woman to bring up a mixed race child in the UK. There was very little support, but there was a very moving system in the direction of adoption in those times. I do believe it was one of my mother's sort of own instincts for me to go somewhere that could provide perhaps more than herself. I think that may have been her initial wish. She was, I've since found out, very much coerced to go with that wish. And so it was. I was adopted. Relinquished was a new word for me a few years ago, but I was adopted when I was 3 months old and separated from my birth mother at 3 months. So I was with her for a long time. Because I was in obviously 9 months and then another 3 months. So, I was with my birth mother for a year before being separated. So that was something that actually I had not really considered until about a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's switch a little bit. What was your relationship like with your adoptive mom growing up?
Well, I'm a transracial adoptee. Again, another term I didn't know or identify myself as. I didn't have any real identity. Transracial, so I'm mixed race. My parents, mum and dad, are both white. And I feel thankful that they actually were the ones that were there after such coercion. because they were aware of what the system was doing, and not in any sort of way that is like bad in any shape or form, but they wanted to do something to support this and to support these mixed race babies that couldn't, that the story was that we didn't have anywhere to go because there was no black parents and not enough white parents. And so I grew up in a white area, in a white family with white mum and dad with their own son and a daughter who was sadly very ill in hospital, mentally disabled. I used to go and see her every week, but they loved me. And they actually adopted me for me, not for them, if that makes sense. And I know that's a big, big thing with this, I've realised. They weren't thinking of filling a hole for themselves or their daughter that was in hospital or anything like that. It was unconditional, and they also fostered lots of children soon after I was adopted. And good or bad, I have to say, growing up with such mixed children from mixed backgrounds lightly did cushion some of the mixed up emotions that were going on with me inside, being the only black child. We were all different, and we were all loved, cared for, fed. It wasn't emotional. They weren't, my parents still are not the sort of people that would come up and give me a hug and talk about stuff that's emotional. They've always steered away from that.
Yeah.
So inevitably, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't tell them when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so I love my mum and dad. I was the good girl. I was very good compared to all the other children that were a bit crazy. And I liked to be the one that was not causing a scene. I was obviously in survival mode, but I didn't know any of that until later.
Yeah.
So yeah, my relationship with my mum and dad is good, but they really don't actually know me. I mean, I'm only really just starting to discover me now.
Right.
So how on earth? But I've had
a long way, baby.
Yeah, but you know, these masks that we learn to put on from such a early age have become sort of like a superpower, really. But in some ways, I've stayed silent to keep the peace.
Right.
In some ways.
Yeah.
And I do think when we come to it, I feel this staying silent, as much as it is a trauma that I've had to really work on, has actually saved some relationships. Actually, I've took on that turmoil within myself and beaten myself up rather than others with that.
Yeah, it's kind of a sad but true reality. Being an adoptee is making those decisions. You know, we all want to tell our truths and be authentic and all that, but sometimes we have to make those decisions, whether it's worth it or not in some of those circumstances, I think.
Yeah. But they're still alive, my mum and dad. They're in their 80s. My dad's going to be 90 next year.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, but they, you know, they very much love me, but don't really know me very well.
Yeah.
But I love them.
So when you were 12, you had some strong feelings and things going on in regards to your birth mother. Tell us what you were feeling and what happened.
Well, I've realized now, without wanting to go and dredge up bad memories and bad things, because as you go through healing, I think more things start to come up. But I think I'm realizing it's coming up when you're prepared. So we have to sort of be mindful of not going back downhill. But I also realized around 12 years old, it's come to my memory that I did have my appendix out, which was, it's like a buildup of stomach issues, which I now point to anxiety lightly occurring all the way up through my childhood, and with the things that I hadn't spoken about. And I do believe that when I was 12 and I had my appendix out, I experienced trauma coming out of the theatre, because memories have come back around some real deep loss, emotional feelings with the nurse as I was being come out. And I've recently learned about it's really is a thing, trauma for children after anesthesia. And that was straight after recovery, no one to talk to about anything, not knowing what or if anything was wrong with me, I was straight into secondary school, which is the, 12 years old, the big school.
Yeah.
Hundreds of children there. And I think it actually scared the life out of me. and yeah, the identity issues really were a problem. And I became really, really desperate to know who my birth mother was, like to at least see a picture of her. Because all my life up to that point, my siblings were having regular meetings with their parents and social services. And I wanted that so much. I knew I couldn't see her until I was 18, but I wanted a picture. And I got pretty desperate to see her. And my mum, being the wonderful woman that she is, also actually, I think, and again, I haven't spoken to her about this, and she's such a shame. But I think she also agreed that it wasn't right. Wasn't right. So she actually got in touch with social services and arranged for it to happen, that I got a photo of my birth mum.
Yeah. So tell us about that part.
Yeah. So I just remember feeling so excited about it. Because it was all a fantasy in my head.
Yeah.
Did my mum I knew my mum was white, and I knew, but did she have blonde hair? Did she have black hair? What did she look like? I just wanted this picture. So the day was coming. I knew that it was going to come, and I was excited. And I'll never forget that feeling beforehand of her, the social worker arriving, and the excitement that I felt. And sadly, I've been able to go back to this event through feeling the sensations, because the truth is, Melissa, I can't actually remember the actual facts of it all. And I think that's what we have to realize, that I've been probably making up a lot of stuff in my head as I've been relaying the story. But when it really comes to the healing of this, it's not in my head, it's in my body. And I really, really remember the feeling of being told that my birth mother was missing, maybe dead, and being shown a photograph of her in a newspaper clipping. And that's the feeling that is a feeling. I remember, and the image of the image of my birth mother was the exact opposite to what I was hoping to see. It was dark, it was sad, it was full of trauma, and it destroyed me. And to be honest, there was another meeting to confirm that she was dead, but I think when I go back to the feeling of it, she was dead already.
You kind of knew already.
I knew already. Yeah, I knew already.
Yeah.
And so when she came a second time, which is a whole nother event where there was lots of emotion and tears, I don't really remember. It was the confirmation. I remember hugging or crying on the social worker. My mum and dad were left. And to be honest with you, Melissa, I've realised through lots of therapy and feeling this into my body, is that I shut down that day. I shut down. Yeah. You hear of 1 in 4 suicides with adoptees, and I get that. I didn't, but I didn't do that. I didn't do that to everybody else, but I did that to myself.
Yeah.
And when you look at the traumas, which I now am trying to turn that word into story, because I think every time we keep revisiting the word trauma, we're traumatizing ourselves.
Yeah.
But when you do look at my story thereafter, I mean, it's the events that occurred are testament to that loss.
That leads up to my next question. So what was it like finding that out in your teenage years? And how do you think your adoption and the death of your birth mother affect how you move in the world at that time as a teenager?
It's life or death. And it's almost as if I have been living in that survival state all the while, until learning to see this and untangle this. It was horrendous. I mean, I maybe mention a trigger warning here. Underage pregnancy, termination, out of my control, rape, court case, and then a complete dismissal of self, very promiscuous, deeply disconnected from myself, my body, domestic violence on both parts, addiction. And so some of the love now coming through from my adoptive parents is through remembering some of this, actually. You know, because I really was, and I left home at 17, and they were absolutely petrified about me, and I should have been about myself as well, really, but I was so lost in myself. I had to be in control. So these masks became very crucial for my life, because deep down in me, as much as it was, you know, looked like war on the outside, I was in control of the war. I was dictating what was happening, and I got out. I got out of that and started turning my life around.
So when was that? When did that happen?
At 3 years, I was 20. So by the time I was 20, I had left a very abusive relationship, a very destructive line of work. And by the time I was 20, I was working, doing telemarketing, and got a fabulous job in a call center. Pretty much acting over the phone, which worked for me like a treat, because I'd been acting up until then all my life. And now I was getting paid for it, like, honestly, for doing so. Well, some would say it wouldn't be honest, you know, some of the selling that we were doing to people, but, you know, they were all businesses. They weren't people at home, you know, and I made some really beautiful friendships that I still have today. And that was 30 years ago. Those of us that could make that job, we earned good money, and we were good at what we did. We were communicators, and we're all still very few of us are very good friends now. In fact, one of them was my bridesmaid. So that was a real shifting point out of something very dark into something very new. And the guy that I met soon after the guy that I was with that it wasn't great with is the now husband that I have. So we have actually been together for 30 years, and I mean, it is wow, but it isn't. It's also a matter of, well, we've got our own trauma now between us from this. My trauma, his trauma has created a story of our own, which is starting to come to fruition. So it's a journey and a half, this.
Well, let's jump ahead a little bit and talk about when you started coming out of the adoption fog. When was that, and what were you feeling and experiencing at that time?
Well, the reason I've got this rainforest behind me is because I am now living in a rainforest, although this is not there for live. It is outside, very close. And I do honestly believe coming here in 2022, when I was coming more to this environment, is really what helped me get clear. Environment, nature, and just having a bit more space to breathe is what I ultimately think is what happened. But it was a phrase called, someone mentioned the frozen baby practice, which was a hypnosis practice. And it was in a post or a comment, and it hit me inside. frozen baby hit me. It resonated with me. I felt it. It was like, what? And I explored it. What is this? What is this frozen baby? And I was clueless. I was like blinded, just going with this feeling. And I've done it. This was one of my last podcasts on my channel before I just have stopped everything, because that's what coming out of the fog did. It literally knocked me over. Especially after I'd been in some of the groups for a few weeks, I really was feeling quite knocked over.
Yeah.
But hearing the frozen baby and then being introduced to it by an adoptee who explained how he came across it and how it had helped him thaw some of these core feelings that he'd had ever since he was adopted. That conversation woke me up to emotions and feelings that I'd been, I think, really deeply protecting myself from. Really deeply protecting myself from the feelings of that frozen baby. It's a feeling. It's the body. Yeah. And I've been thinking about these things, doing mindfulness and all this body scan and stuff, but until you really go in and connect into there. But the danger is obviously going over all the memories and the content, and then that bringing you down even further. So I do believe being in this environment has massively helped me to navigate all of this. It was like the grief for my birth mother felt so real. The knowledge that I was actually born. I came out of somebody's womb and had never actually really hit me before until 2022.
Yeah.
Meeting you, as in my world, there was only about a handful of other adoptees in the world.
I know.
And certainly, you know, and if I wasn't thinking about them, it's because they're all just obviously had such wonderful lives, haven't they? That's why I haven't heard about adoptees.
Sure.
I was living in such a fake world, really, and that validation, that understanding is all. It took a long time to start. It put me down, and then it's about piecing yourself back together again.
Do you think you're out of the fog?
Facing yourself.
Do you think
I don't think so yet.
Are we ever really out? You know, I mean, it seems like it rolls in every once in a while. Just when you think you've, conquered something, it rolls in another thing. But there's comes into your awareness,
I think what I've come accustomed with recently is I've also been in a marriage fog, actually, and waking up to that through this healing process, recognizing how much of my energy I'm seeing in his eyes and vice versa, and how much of that is becoming our norm, and how much are we triggering each other just for, and then when you start to notice that's like a fog lifting.
Yeah.
And spiritually, there's a fog that we're all in. I do believe we're all traumatized, from when we're born, really. There's a huge separation from wherever we've come from. The complexity of a second separation is, I really do think it has to be looked at seriously, because you can have the best parents in the world and be extremely damaged.
Yeah.
And for that to still be coming out, that's why I feel what this is all about now is this has to stop, because there's a separation already into this world, which I think in its own right is a trauma. To then have that again, and for it to be totally disregarded, the relationship with our mother after 9 months, regardless of what her thoughts are or her feelings or what she's up to, doesn't make an ounce of difference. We were there for 9 months.
Yeah.
And you should not be taking that away so flippantly.
Yeah.
So.
Well, recently you've had some epiphanies about your birth mother. I think you called it a transition on perspective. Tell us about that. What happened?
Well, I was coming up with a program called Learn to Love Your Story. And like everything, I was doing it for everybody else apart from myself. I've done so much over the years, training, this, that, and whatever, and just directed at everybody else. And Learn to Love Your Story was one of those programs. And I realized that I really need to get the facts of my own story before I start telling everybody else all this stuff. I need to, like, am I mind reading my own story? Anyway, so I got the archives out and I started looking at my birth mother's death when she actually died. And it was so interesting for me because I realized that from the age of 12, 13, I still had only really got that image of her in that paper. I hadn't actually considered that there was a whole newspaper article about her missing. And I certainly didn't know that there was another whole few articles about my mother's death, and that it was a potential murder, and all of this stuff was like heavy. Yeah. And this was all back in the year last year. And it was the first time that I really got drawn to her and her birthday and the connection with her, and like all this time I hadn't realized, but once I realized she was dead, I think I'd taken that as a rejection. Like, she's rejected me again, abandoned me again. Obviously, I didn't know that all this was going on in me in the first place to know that it would be like that. But when I started realizing this a year or so ago, it was like, wow, she's my mother. She was born too, and she there's this whole thing of where I realized that at the time that I got really desperate for finding my mother, was the time that she went missing.
Yeah.
So, wow. Was there something there that was, because over this time of last year and the healing, I'm realizing how intuitive I am and have always been all my life, but how paranoid I've got with that intuition by internalizing it on myself. So you know how, Melissa, you can walk in a room and you can feel energies from other people. Well, I would be so intuitive, and I realize I really am, but I would then think it was my fault that I was feeling all of these things. So I would then feel paranoid and then think that, oh my God. Da, da, da. So I never, ever, ever looked at this intuition as like a superpower.
Wow.
But actually, when I was reading all these archives and realizing the sort of time that I would have been really running away to find my mom, because I used to run away to find her, and my dad used to come pick me up along the motorway. Like, yeah, it was. And it was after that I realized it was her birthday on the 14th of October, and I'd never celebrated it. And she would be 75 last year. And on the day of her birthday, it was the eclipse. There was one on the 14th of October and one on the 28th. And I'd had an astrology report from a friend who had actually told me that me and my birth mother were extremely connected on the chart, like our connected consciousness, almost like I knew that I was going to be given up as a baby. Yeah. And it's almost like there was that there. And this is a time to set intentions, this part of the eclipse. So I went to a beautiful space with a waterfall on my birth mother's birthday, the day of the eclipse. And I was amazed, because it wasn't just an experience that was coming through around the love for my birth mother, but I was getting extremely overwhelmed around the connection with my adopted mom, because actually my birth mother's wish was really for me to go to be loved, to have love, to give. That's what she wanted. Ultimately, she wanted me to be loved.
Yeah.
And my adopted mom, I found a letter recently which just proves this. At the time that she got in touch with social services was around the same month that I was conceived.
Wow.
So in 1971, there was a newspaper article about all these mixed race babies I was being conceived around that time. And I see it as like a triage now, a beautiful love.
Mm.
It was there for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I missed, and I've missed this. I've missed this, and I've missed this perspective. I've missed this, and it came in the day of the eclipse, like a flood of acknowledgement and tears and emotions. It was absolutely beautiful.
It sounds like you, by acknowledging and thinking, that your birth mother also had a story, that realizing that helped you get to a point of having compassion and love for her. Is that true?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And but it can bypass you, because I found out many years ago from her brother that she'd tried to take her own life 3 months after I was born.
Mm.
And so, I mean, that's real information, because that was prior to me actually being adopted. She was struggling, but that didn't hit me. It didn't hit me. I was just, wow, okay, wow. And it's just a timing. It's timing is, and again, that's why I think the environment, when we can get into nature, when we can appreciate the eclipse, when we've got time for ourselves, I've almost, by the love of God and my higher self, found myself in this place where I'm being able to be in this environment. And yeah, I encourage it, because this was always there. I just wasn't seeing it at all.
So how does your adoptive mom fit into your life now? Has your perspective on her changed as well through this process?
Yeah, I wish I could talk to her. I love her so much. And when I last spoke to her a year or so ago about the primal wound and about, I, my mum got very upset, but not in a way that was, I just felt into her. And I know that if she'd have known, if she could have done something, she would have done it. She followed the book to do the right thing. And if someone had said to her, Donna, she needs her birth mother's in distress, my mom would have like moved mountains for me to have that. So, but what's happening with me now, Melissa, is quite beautiful, and it's also quite scary in some ways, because I realize with this healing that there's a lot of love that I've been keeping in, protected. So when I'm now thinking of my biological family that I found over the years, and I've got a good relationship with, started thinking of my sisters the other day and felt all these emotions coming up, almost as if I haven't truly allowed myself to feel the real, full loveliness of reunion. And it's the same with my mom. I'm 5,000 miles away from her now, and I see her on video call every week. And I just can't wait to go and give her the biggest hug. She's only 4 foot tall, my mom. She's only 4'2", and she's got bad back problems. So I've been working on things to help her with that, because she's getting smaller and smaller. But the love that I'm feeling, not just for her, but for everything. And I think that's coming from allowing myself to finally grieve my mother and finally start accepting love for myself. Once that started coming through, I've realized it's in abundance.
Yeah.
It's in abundance, and it's been there waiting. And as well as some bad, horrible memories are coming up, there's also some beautiful memories coming up. And I'm laughing more, smiling more, and it's more of a continuous wave rather than an up and down. All my life it's been, I'm up this day, I'm down the next, I'm up and down, and I'm not in control. And I feel my nervous system is starting to get to grips with who I am, really.
And it's a process as an adoptee to feel safe to love, freely, openly, like you're talking about. And it has to start with self-love, because if you don't have that, you don't have that to fall back on, then you really can't open yourself up to allow other people in. It is a potential hurt that might happen there. But as long as you have that self-love, I think that you can fall back on, and that self-worth, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Those are, I think, two huge things in being able to open up to
Absolutely.
love. Yeah.
The key.
So you were attacked by a dog recently, and you had a huge shift with your self-worth. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that these huge events in my story are now going to start calming down. Because there was a flood before that in September, and then a vicious dog attack on my dog, and I rescued it, my dog, and this dog then attacked me, and I had horrendous injuries on my leg, and I've had to come up with a case file for that and start evaluating what my worth is in that.
Wow.
And
like monetarily wise, like you're
monetarily
like really...
wise, yes,
yeah.
really, yes. When you consider that the owners of these dogs are not short of a bobble too, I had to take this very seriously. And what I realized quite soon on is that I very sad that I really didn't value myself at all when it came to the money side, trying to put a figure on what I'm worth. It was soul destroying to recognize that. But what lifted me was I realized that because I've been nonstop busy all my life, and I realized that no, Donna, your currency is not money. The currency is love. So look at what you've done out of love, and look at it that way. Look at all the things you've done, all the people you've helped. And what would it be to them to lose you as well? Like think of that. If you could no longer get to them or do what you've done. And that's when things started to shift.
Yeah.
And I woke up one morning, I had a dream, and I said to Eric, 8.8 million, that's what I'm worth. And it just was like, it was so funny because it was just like, and it was just nice to actually have this sort of exercise, really, to just sort of, and I encourage it. I really do. Because
so
I was
able to really look
at it.
I don't need any money, like it's okay, you don't.
At first, the crazy thing was,
like, just when it happened, for my medical bills,
I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking more about the dogs than myself. Where I'm from, those dogs would have been put down straight away, like they'd be dead by midnight. Where I am, that's not the case. And I was worrying, and I didn't go to the police because I was worrying about the welfare of the dogs. I did not even consider there'd be a thing for me. I was just happy that my dog was survived and I didn't lose my leg, and I was worrying about the dogs. It was my landlord in Chicago who had seen lots of stuff about what I do, because I work with children. I do a lot with children, and he'd seen some of the online work I do. And he said, Donna, he said, I've only known you a few months, but you do realize that you are worth a lot more than those dogs, don't you? And it was crazy. I mean, because it really was like, I was not. And it was a real, we can go through life and think that we're doing all right and getting through it, and we are, but there's some things that we miss, and they're big ones.
Yeah.
And this is a massive one.
Yeah.
That you can't, my Learn to Love Your Story program, going out to others. Yes, I'm sure it would have worked a little bit with people, but until I fully value myself, this is a massive piece that's been given to me. I had to have a dog puncture my leg 5 times to get this lesson. And I don't wish it on anybody. And I don't suggest that everybody goes and tries to take their dog out of a Rottweiler's claws or mouth. But I tell you what, Melissa, it's testament to our survival warrior mechanisms, because I mean, there was no marks on my hand. There was a split second that I could get my dog out of those 2 dogs' jaws, and I did it. And I think when I consider the survival that we've all been on, adoptees especially, all of our lives, all the events that we've had to navigate on our own, all these different masks to get through life, that's why my dog's still alive and asleep outside. And I'm pleased now that I've had this experience. I don't want it again, but I value myself now. I didn't put 8.8 million on there. It's not, but it was just really nice to know that I'm able to quantify in a way myself this way and see that I am definitely worth something.
I mean, we laugh about it because it sounds so silly to have to point that out, but it's so profound and deep that that's really how you felt and hadn't even thought about it,
Hadn't even thought about it. Hadn't. And the flood that happened in September, I think that was come on, Donna, this is a slightly less dramatic event. Learn from this one. If not, you're going to get another big one. And that was where I thought I was in a flood. It turned out it was just because I was on a hill and there's rivers, so it wasn't a flood. But in my perspective, it was. And my husband was away. And I was telling him, don't come. Save yourself. Save our son. I'll be okay. Go, get on the roof. I'll be fine. This was me on the phone. No, I'll be fine. I was like, and 5-10 minutes later, he's there. He's come anyway, my superhero. And then he pulls me out, and I realized but that was a big sign as well, Donna, that I was, but I didn't wake up to the value on myself with that one. So lo and behold, 2 months later, this happened. And I'm waking up to the fact that these events will keep happening to us until we learn the lessons we're here to learn. And value and self-worth is massive. So a journey and a half.
Right. So what has helped you navigate some complexities that you've had with your adoption? I know you've done some work with your nervous system and myofascial release. Talk about some of the things that's helped you.
Yeah, I think learning about fascia release, understanding that feeling of fascia release is also a feeling of releasing old emotional wounds and stresses really resonated with me. I mean, we all love a massage when they get that point and it's like, oh, don't stop. We all love that. We can all relate to that. Well, fascia release is that in that one area for ages until it's gone. And it's gone. And I was working on it on my calves, on my quads, on my arm. And I soon realized that I was breathing really beautifully. It was like a release, not only through my feet, but through my breath. And then I learned more about fascia, and it was telling you about how you can breathe and get even more out of it and do this. And I was like, I'm getting that already. And before you know it, I was doing this fascia release with all over my body and feeling this sensation of wounds and emotions leaving my body. And I think that was what really got me started, to be honest. I got quite addicted to doing it. And then that led me to the nervous system and brain trauma and understanding that, the vagus nerve. And I think recognizing for the first time that I think my nervous system is like an engine and it's been running at high speed all my life. And that actually, even when you're learning how to move your eyes from left to right, move your head, this is likely when I was with my birth mother, what the hell's going on? If that's disrupted or you're nervous at that point, then it could be misaligned for the rest of your life. And that's your nervous system misaligned for the rest of your life. And I only found that out in February, 2 months ago.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was a big direct acknowledgement for me that I'm in overspeed. Everything is in overspeed. So even when you do therapy, you learn about these parts, and it's like that the parts are in overspeed. Everything's in overspeed. Even when I'm figuring it out is in overspeed. So until I start slowing it down, you should just stop everything. I was going to go into EMDR. I was about to venture into it. And I suddenly realized, no, stop this first. Let's slow down first. Because everything is in overdrive.
Yeah.
So,
either that or it's hiding somewhere.
Yeah.
Rescue it.
Yeah. So that was really what's that. And then Peter Levine's great information has really helped me as well.
Yeah. So do you wish you would have gotten to this point in your healing sooner? Do you think you wished you had some of these realizations earlier in life?
It's interesting because I do, because I even now when I write out things that I love to do that lights me up inside, I feel I could have been doing that a lot sooner. And it's all, it's just been an ongoing inner struggle. But at the same time, because this adoption racket, if you like, is still going on, and I do think that it's like there's so many of it's just, I'm glad I've got the experiences I have, because these are the tools, the complexity that comes with this. I have the tools. I am an expert.
Yeah. So what do you think, in a nutshell, if you could kind of sum up your healing combination, what do you think that would be for you?
Just come back. Sorry, say that again, Melissa. I was just turning off that sound that was coming on. Say that again.
In a nutshell, what do you think your healing combination is?
Searching for the truth, an ongoing search for the truth is really what I think. I feel that I've been healing and peeling away the layers to this and my truth all my life, even though I've been wrapped up in this trauma or this story. I've still been not giving up, peeling away the layers. My podcast, Searching for Truth, speaking, doing speaking, writing, even though I'm in the fog, just really.
Yeah.
And then I've said it a few times, your environment, the environment that you're in, getting out. All the while that I was in the UK and all the positive things that I was doing, I was getting out in my park, I was doing videos out, I was encouraging people to get out, including myself. And now I realize just how much of an impact it is on our healing and discovering who we truly are, because we are part of nature. Our cycles and everything are in rhythm with nature. But everything, the system, everything, it's all very, there's a lot of distractions out there that will just pull us away from ourselves and the beauty that is around us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And fellow adoptees. I mean, we met 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were going to set something up because we were both like, there needs to be something for us all.
Yeah.
That validation, that understanding, that need to communicate and respond is huge towards
super helpful.
not necessarily the healing, but opening up to healing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd already been opening up to it, but there's many people that are just starting to.
Yeah. I mean, I was just figuring out that I needed to, like, I didn't know I needed to until I started listening, to other adoptees and going on these sites and listening to other podcasts and then having people on my podcast. And I was like, oh crap. Like, what does this mean for me personally, finding all this stuff out and just being able to have the permission to talk about it.
Yeah. And there's a real danger of staying in that as well, in that side of your story, because it starts coming up and resurfacing and coming up sometimes for the first time. And it's horrific.
Yeah.
A lot of us are healers or want to be because of our own wounds. So when they're then put to us even clearer, so that's how I felt. When we first met.
So after going through all that you've been through, what do you think your purpose is in this life?
I've no doubt it's to serve others. I was questioning a year ago the authenticity with that, because I've always given everything that I do out to others, everything I've learned. And I've started to think recently, or was thinking, like, is it just because I lack of self-worth myself to take this information in, that I'll learn it, take a little bit for myself, and then I'll give it all to everybody else, because my gift is communication and I can deliver. So I really did sort of have to question this need or wanting to serve others. Like, where's it coming from? What is it coming from? A true place, or is it coming to fill something that needs filling? And you asked me that question, and over the last couple of months, without a doubt, I know I'm here to serve, but myself first is the key thing I've been missing. Is
definitely.
But as I've been getting the results with my nervous system, it's organic. I'm getting people. I'm helping people now, but it's expanding myself.
Yeah,
it's with that, and I'm observing that, and it's beautiful. It's becoming obvious that it's my purpose but you know what I've decided with my purpose? It's probably best that I don't think too much about that, because I think too much, and I think God, source, universe, whatever you believe in, what I believe in, is guiding that quite nicely with my purpose now. And my podcast is coming back to fruition. I've started singing, which is beautiful, and I just say, if I start thinking about do this, do that, I'm learning it's from within.
Yeah. I think as healers, we give people what we needed, or, and sometimes we haven't even given ourselves what we needed first, but we know what the need is. And so we just want to get out there and help other people when we haven't even dealt with ourselves.
And then they're like, oh, they're doing really well. They've just got themselves sorted. Donna was really helpful. She really, and I'm like, great.
Yeah.
I'm nearly there. I mean, I love it. I love what I do, and I'm excited now because I actually do feel and believe that I'm gonna actually do these things, but I'm doing them. I'm being them. I'm gonna be these things rather than do.
Yeah.
Just be what feels right.
So I've probably asked you this in a past interview. I should go back and listen to it and see what you said then and what you answer now. But do you think we can heal from the primal wound?
You know what? I think the primal wound could always be an ache in your body that I was feeling into, that this could always be there for the rest of your life. And when I see comments of adoptees saying, no, it's with you forever, I feel where that's coming from. But with the work that I'm doing, along the lines with Peter Levine, I'm realizing that these feelings in our body can be transformed.
Yes.
And the feelings in our body, they're energy. And it's an energy that we're so afraid of because it hurts. I mean, it's energy, and and I think the primal wound carries a lot of that real sensitive, vulnerable, deep, 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 purest of energies. And that's why there's a chance it could always be there. But I do, and I'm starting to believe with the work, there's a way that we can feel that, but it can be a primal connection rather than a primal wound. It's like the word trauma, there's a connotation to that.
Yeah.
And I think this, and so that's, I think it's so complex. We will likely always feel this, even through all the healing we've done. It's like, it's because of this. Right. It's all part of this. Yeah. So I'm loving the idea of being able to transform that into something that reminds me of this journey, this, yeah. I don't know if that.
Yeah. No, yeah. It did. So in closing, what do you want adoptees that might be struggling with their relationships with either their birth mother or adoptive mother? What would you want them to know?
It starts with us first. It starts with us and the connection with ourselves. Because then if we really do that work, we realize that we came from somewhere. And if we really do that work, we're within ourselves doing this work, not outside, where all of this practical stuff happens and that was happening around us when we didn't remember. I would want adoptees to be looking at their own story from within themselves, because for me, that direct connection with my birth mother that way led me to her story. Her story from there, from we were together, we were one. And then the realization that we were both damaged by this.
Yeah.
Because then that's led me on to looking into her childhood. Like, it was in the war days. It was in this just considering what was going on then, just connected me more to. And also the same with my adoptive mom. My adoptive mom didn't really know how to be emotional because she was never brought up that way.
Yeah.
And the reason she wanted lots of children around and she wanted to do good for so many children was because her dad, my granddad, used to lock her up under the stairs on her own when she was 4 or 5 years old, and she was petrified. She never wanted a child to go through that.
Yeah. Wow. So
as much as I was, angry and how could you adopt me? And all of this, it really does help to go within and look at ourselves first, primarily, and then our stories, our birth stories, all of them.
Yeah. I just want to say, I know there's we both had what we say are good adoptee, adoptive parents, and had a pretty good adoptive experience. And there's others out there that don't have that. But I really feel like you can still look at your birth mother, even if you have anger, or even your adoptive mother, if you have anger towards her, and still have compassion without feeling like you have to forgive what they did, to you. But you can still have compassion for that if you look back at their stories and see what they went through. We're all responsible for our healing process. And when someone hurts you because they're not healing, that's not okay. But I think looking at that it's not you. I think when you look back at their stories, then you can see that it really isn't your fault. It's not you. It's from what they've come through and lived through in their story. And you can still have compassion for that at least and get some healing from that, I think.
I do understand that for me, my birth mother is dead. So a lot of the work has been visionary. I've been able to fantasize, and hearing some of the stories and reading some of the stories with reunions with birth mothers, I feel quite blessed that I've been able to do that, because my birth mother would have been carrying a huge amount of trauma. And I may well be more of the adult than she was. And the dynamics in that, I'm not sure I would be sat here at this point in my healing if I had that, or going on. So I absolutely empathize, and to have to navigate that parent that was traumatized and missing having their own child, let's say, and you were in as a replacement to that, to navigate that. But I do feel this is a good ending, really. I'm starting to realize that the more complex it is, the more superpower gifts we have on this earth, if we can only get there. And when we do, you navigate that relationship, the forgiveness, whatever it is, however you do it, and get through that. Wow.
Yeah, priceless.
You're really going to be having a gift. Whereas at the moment, I think it feels like you're holding a real baggage of weight. But actually, I think that could be a huge gift of lightness once we've navigated this. And it's hard, and some people might slap me and go, how dare you say this, it's because it's been so bad. And it's like, yes, I know, but we're here, and we're still here. Can you believe it? 50 years later, we're still here. Go figure that.
Right. Just be curious about what can happen when you start trying to find your healing combination, because it's out there. You weren't put on this earth to be miserable and sad and grieving, all those things. But definitely start that healing process, because it's totally worth it.
The love will start coming through, and you'll start to feel it, and it will. I did a workshop on love a couple of years ago, and it frightened people, within the adoptee community.
I have the same experience with the somatic therapy. It can be scary. But I think, do you want to stay in long-term suffering, or, do you want to start healing? It's just, that's the decision that you have to make. It's sometimes not a fun process, but
it's gentle, it's soothing. It's got to be sensory, it's got to be soothing. I love what you're doing, Melissa. I'm getting into movement now. I think it's important for us to move our bodies and recognize what we're doing with it. And it may take time, but and it doesn't necessarily mean talking it over and over and over and over and over, because that doesn't always help. So it's just but if we're still around now listening to this, we're survivors. There's beautiful light at the other end of this. And I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there.
So tell us what you're up to. Do you have a website? Where can we find you?
So it's not at the moment, but it's going to be, and I'm excited about it. And I will give you the link to go on, and I'm sure you can add it as well at a later time. My podcast is coming back to fruition, and that's going to be available on YouTube but also linked to from my website. So
and what's the name of it again?
So my website is donnajoseph.co.uk. Okay. So I'll give you the link to that as well, to put in when it's live. But it's I'm wanting to really help others through my story, my story. They learn to love your story. Now I realize it was me. It was me that was learning to love my own story. Yeah. And it's a beautiful way of encouraging others to do the same, and become confident with their voice, their body, their movement, and just bring in all of these elements of things along the way that have helped me get to where I am now. So yeah, I'm quite excited about it, because I know that there's a lot of need for this healing.
Yeah. So we will put any links in the show notes to get in touch with you. Donna, I just want to thank you for your service to the adoptee community and just your willingness to be open and honest with where you're at every time you come on the show. And, I've known you for probably a couple of years now, and I've just seen so much growth, and just appreciate you as a friend as well. And yeah, just keep going, because I think you're figuring out your purpose and helping others and healing yourself in the process. So just thanks for coming on.
Yeah, and you, Melissa, thank you. So proud of you for doing so well, and really, really with the birth mothers and adopted parents and the constellation. I'm so pleased that you've took this direction, and I support you 100%. And we'll come on again and let you know how I'm getting on.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, Donna, for coming on the show today. Mother's Day is just around the corner, and it can be a time of conflict, a day of emotions and feelings and sadness for adoptees and birth mothers. And the thing I want you to ask yourself is, are you ready to start the process to feeling better? It is possible to feel better. I believe it is possible to heal from the primal wound, but you can at least start the process to feel better. Are you ready for that? And to be curious. And, sometimes we find a therapist or we try a modality and it just isn't working and we give up. But we need to take that opportunity and use it to find a better way. We all have a different healing combination. And if you are trying EMDR and it just isn't working for you, that's okay. Now you know what you don't need. Keep searching for what you do need and what will help. You were put on this earth to live a life that you love. So start today and get in touch with me if you are in search of an adoptee therapist or healer. I have a ton of resources for you. Get in touch with me at mindyourownkarma@gmail.com. If you want to come on the podcast, if you are any part of a triad or a sibling or a therapist that is adoption informed, get in touch with me. Let's get your story on the podcast at mindyourownkarma@gmail.com. As always, take what you need and leave what you don't. And always remember to mind your own karma. I'll see you next time.